Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Politically Correct Ghana lesson 306. And today, being the 8th of July 2025, we want to look at the economy of Ghana. We want to seriously look at the economy of Ghana. The economy of Ghana as of now is in a stagnated state. Stagnation is going through stagnation, a mix of stagnation, stagflation, and recession. Don't think I'm joking. I know that there's goodwill for the new president, John Dramani Mahama, and there's goodwill for the National Democratic Congress, but the country actually is going through a certain mix of a confusion of stagnation, stagflation, and then recession. What does that mean? And then we see what it means. If you want to know what it is, just look at how transport fares have been reduced by the trotro operators or drivers and their mates have not reduced it. They are still finding ways around it to maintain the high prices that fuel prices have dropped, but still no. The transport fares are still high. That's just by the way. But stagnation because what? The economic growth is just moving around some small variances, small discrepancies, just moving around some small percentage. Yes, the growth is not that high. We can say it's high, but it's just moving around the same point. And then it's coupled with what? High unemployment. Very high unemployment. A lot of the youth are just roaming around doing nothing. Look at it this way. And not that they don't want to do anything. There's no availability of opportunities for them to work and get paid and live a decent life. Then let's look at the stagflation. Stagflation is where the economic cycle is just moving around the same place, coupled with high inflation rate, very high inflation rate, and of course, high unemployment. We can say the inflation rate is not high because it's come down to 13.1%. I'm not too sure. It's still very high. Why am I saying it's very high? Because one, prices of goods and services have not come down. You look using a CPI, consumer price index. What about the personal expenditure, personal consumption expenditure, PCE index? Just look at that as well. Okay, then let's look at recession. Recession is where the economic growth is in a downturn and then it's coupled with high unemployment rate. So with these three, the commonalities is unemployment. Unemployment is featured in stagnation. Unemployment is featured in stagflation. Unemployment is featured in recession. I'm going to make it snappy, so in recession. So then it means that we have to tackle unemployment as a country. We have to sit down and agree to one common position, or the president and the government will have to sit down and agree to one position. That is, how do you solve unemployment? One, so that we come out of stagnation, stagflation, and then recession. So one is construction. One is construction. Two is interest rate, and then the lending rate. Then the three is agriculture. And so we look at it gradually. One, when it comes to construction, government has to make a deliberate policy to spend. Government expenditure must go up into what? Construction. Is it possible that we can reconstruct our roads into urban roads and then feeder roads again? The urban roads, why not give it out on build, operate, and transfer, BOT basis, so that the big giant companies in India, the China, and the Brazil and can come and take a motorway from say Aflawo all the way up north to Bunkruguyoyo into Burkina Faso. They build it within 5 years and operate it, tow it up and operate it for maybe maximum of 20 years and then hand over to Ghana. But it will benefit from that. It will benefit big time from that because you build a road from motorway, not the Akratama motorway. That's too small. That is too small. That's not a motorway in this time and age. Look, we're talking of 5 lanes in, 5 lanes out, and various junctions that it rolls through from Aflawo all the way to Bunkruguyoyo up north into Burkina Faso. That way, if it is given to the Chinese government or the Chinese contractor, they build it up and then they tow it up and take the money for 5, 10, 15 years or 20 years and then hand over to Ghana. That's Ghanaian's property. That's good. That's what you do to the ports. And the same thing you have to do to other areas. Like some other roads that can be towed, you can even give it out because that way it gives us technology transfer. We don't have that architectural knowledge as much as China or India does have, unfortunately. So we don't have the money, we don't have the technology. So we have to hire from other people. Let us admit these situations. And all these are roads that we are having will be sorted out so that the ones that we can manage, the feeder roads, we can put our specialization into it and then we work on the feeder roads that will feed into the highways or the motorways. All right, that's just one side. The waterways and the trainways. The water ferry ports. We also build on transfer, build, operate, and transfer, given to private enterprises in Brazil, Denmark, no, not Denmark, Brazil and Dutch, Holland, the Netherlands. They are good at those ferry ports. They can build it for us, and then we can do the inland ferry movements. Quite easy to help transport. Then, of course, build, operate, and transfer. Please, NPP, when we enter the build, operate, and transfer, don't come into power to want to be changing it, to be playing all sorts of tricks with it. No, let it operate for the 10, 15, 20 years, and then the country benefits from that. Then that the rails too, you could get the Chinese to put up modern rails for us, countrywide, and connect into the West Africa, into the African market. Okay, so that's on construction. Housing is also another form of construction. Stop this coming to power and then just pause the Stagnation housing project. That was a very bad attempt by the NPP, the New Patriotic Party. It was just bad. It wasn't good. Let's think of the future. Let's go through the short-term pain for the long-term benefit. Short-term pain for long-term benefit. Let's suffer now so that our great-grandchildren or our children will benefit. That's what we have to grow our nation into. The nation Ghana, how we have to grow into. Okay, that's on construction. It will give a lot of jobs, a lot direct and indirect jobs. This construction will generate a lot of direct and indirect jobs, beating the unemployment rate down and down and down to maybe 10% or 12% or even 7%, because it has a cascading effect on other sectors. All right, that's just one bit of it. The other bit is the lending rate and interest rate. The lending rate and interest rate. I'm surprised that the interest rate, the inflation rate is 13% as of June 2025. Meanwhile, the monetary policy by the Bank of Ghana is as high as 28%. The variance is too wide. It means that there's a glitch and the economy will slow down. There will not be economic activities buoyant because they cannot borrow money from the banks. The banks will now have to lend money at 40, 44%, 33%, 37%, 50%. So watch out how it is. You find out that those who are lending money personally to private individuals on weekly basis are thriving in the market faster and they are making a lot of profit. Unlike you have to reduce the Bank of Ghana policy rate, reduce it to about 15. If the inflation rate is 13%, reduce it to about 15 or 15%. Bank of Ghana has to reduce its monetary policy rate to about 15% to get closer to the inflation rate, to match it up, to make it meaningful for construction and then for other businesses to enter, so that businesses can now borrow and expand and venture into other areas. That's how it should be worked upon. That's how it should be looked upon and it should be implemented. Then let's look at agric. The agric, just before the agric, if we keep the monetary policy rate so high, thinking that it is mopping up cash from the system, and then people cannot do business, you fail. We are failing big time. So let's look at agric. As for agric, I need not say anything that we are entering the rainy season, but prices of food stuff is not coming down. It's still going up. They keep telling us that it's coming down. The CPI tells us that food inflation is coming down to about 11% as of June 2025. But look, the PCE, that's the personal consumption expenditure, it's higher than that. It's higher than that. It's higher than 11%. Let me tell you, food prices are going high. There's nothing to hide about. Either the agric minister gets up, does his seat, and does his decks up, and then works out at it. The earlier the better. 6 months goodwill is fine, but we will not go a year into any goodwill. President John Dramani Mahama, we will not have that goodwill for a year. So whatever you're doing with the government, good enough for 6 months, let's move into the second gear and put policies and implementation. Let's implement what we have written to move the country into the future. The name is H. Kwame Afagro. Make us enjoy today, and then our children also enjoy. Let us enjoy the resources we have today, such that our children also enjoy the resources, same resources in the future. Thank you.